Baby, let's go. One more time, how about it, yeah? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on back to the RLCS Midwest Minute, your one-stop shop for anything RLCS related. Okay, so we got some great games here for you today, so let's get to these headlines real quick once, why don't ya? Alright, so taking place first is that lower round 3 matchup. Quick Trip Pioneers taking on Limitless. Limitless being the crowd favorites. And unfortunately, they did fall 3-1. But Limitless did take a game. They played pretty gosh darn good. They got a 0-second goal. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough against the Quick Trip Pioneers, so they fall and they are out of the tournament. It is Elimination Friday today, so it's all elimination matches taking place today. So moving on next, we had OG taking on Gaming Gladiators, and OG had a pretty convincing sweep, 3-0, and yeah, Gaming Gladiators only really scored in the first match there, and then they didn't score any more for the rest of their tournament lives. They are now kicked out of the tournament, or I should say eliminated from the tournament. But either way, let's just keep these headlines moving real quick once. Next up, it was Genji taking on the Quick Trip Pioneers, and what's going on, Genji? You're supposed to be number 2 from NA, but it did not go well. They ended up falling 3-2 against the Quick Trip Pioneers, who had a little bit of momentum from that lower round 3 matchup. They just took it into this lower round 4 match, and they won game 1 4-1, and then they lost the next couple, but then they came back in games 4 and 5, and they beat out Genji. So they eliminated number 2 from NA from the tournament in that lower round 4 matchups. Now, you could argue that Genji shouldn't have been down that low to begin with anyways, but they were, and they lost, so they are out of the tournament. Next up, taking place was Power taking on Team Secret, the number 2 in SAM, and Team Secret, they did win game number 1, but then they ended up getting gentleman swept, or spaceman swept if you feel so inclined, by Power in the game 2 overtime that changed the momentum towards Power. And you could hear it from the crowd. Power was the heavy favorites in that matchup. They were the crowd favorites. They were everyone's favorites, if we're being real. And then next up was Vitality taking on OG. And it's just so unfortunate to see there, but OG, they ended up dropping to Vitality 1-3. Now, Vitality, they did get that game number 1 victory in that 1 minute and 45 second overtime, and then they took game number 2 pretty convincingly. Game number 3, though, OG fought back, and then they won that game, beating out Vitality. And in the crowd, you could have started thinking that maybe it was their time to start the reverse sweep happening. But then Vitality came back and booted them out of the tournament. So number 2 and number 3 from NA were both kicked out of the tournament. And heading into the round 5 matchup, NA's last hope to being more than just a 1-team region was SSG. And the matchups they did align pretty well in SSG's favor. So I'll get to that a little bit later. That was the last matchup of the day. But first of all, Gentlemates taking on Power. Everybody wanted Gentlemates to lose and to have Power win and make top 8 for the first time in 5 years since Season 6 Worlds. That's how long it's been since OCE has made top 8. And that roster was the Drip A roster on the Chief Esports. They were just a different team. Then Power looked to be that good, if not better, and like the best team that OCE has produced since that specific Worlds, but just like in general, more so. But Unfortunately, they did get swept by Gentlemates 3-0. That last game, you could tell that Power was just running out of steam, and they got beat 5-0 in that last one. But it was a good run for them. Everybody was rooting on their side, but they just unfortunately dropped. And next up was Oxygen taking on Vitality, and you could kind of tell everybody wanted Oxygen to win. Well, you couldn't kind of tell. You could very heavily tell because the crowd was very in favor of specifically Joyo and all of Oxygen in general. And when like Vitality did anything, it was just boos all around. And Oxygen, they came out 3-2 for Archie, by the way, and it's working out for them. They beat that round 5 matchup, and they will move on, and they qualified for the playoff bracket. So props to them. They did the job that they needed to get done, and they move on despite not playing a lot of games. But that's the last matchup of the day was SSG taking on the Quick Trip Pioneers. Now, the Quick Trip Pioneers, they just came off a hot win against Limitless. Again, not the toughest competition in the world, but you can physically tell that Limitless are getting better and better as they get more and more LAN experience against this international competition. They are doing so much better than when they first entered into the scene. They're starting to take games against some of these teams here, and very soon we'll see them take a series against one of these more upper regions such as OCE or SAM, or maybe even NA at this point, who knows. But either way, we'll keep these headlines moving. And Quick Pioneers, they also just came off a victory against, I believe it was Gen G. They beat Gen G in a game 5, so they're coming fresh hot off of beating that number 2 NA seed. And they had all the momentum going onto their side. Fiber, he had an amazing fall off the stage, but we don't talk about that. Just go search it up on Twitter. It's everywhere. But they were coming off. They were the hot hand. They were not the favorites, but SSG came on stage, and obviously since it's an NA LAN, there is heavy NA bias, especially from me. I was in that crowd waving that SSG flag. You already know. You might have seen me in a couple of the highlights, but mainly just my flag. I kind of accidentally covered my face with it, but we'll change that for tomorrow, so that way you can actually see my face. But SSG, they beat game number 1 2-1, game number 2 2-1. In that game number 1, I might add, Hoxer had an insane 0-second goal in order to have SSG not have to go into overtime. And the crowd got hyped, I got hyped. It was an insane day number 1. LAN is going fantastic, I must add. But SSG. And then in game number 3, it was a 2-minute and 51-second overtime before, I believe it was, you know what? It was Hoxer. Before Hoxer ended up scoring the game-winning and series-winning goal. And they beat Quick Trip Pioneers in a 3-0 sweep. Quick Trip Pioneers, the hot hand, they were playing very good. They were playing exceptional, but SSG was just able to outplay them ever so slightly. And as we look forward ahead into day number, I believe it would be day number 5, day number 2 of crowd days. And we head over to the Swiss tiebreaker and to that lower bracket round 1 matchups, and also that First Touch versus Chalkcast show match that we have going on. So we'll do the regular matches first, and then I'll say my predictions for that Chalkcast First Touch match. But the first matchup of the day is going to be Furia taking on Carmine Core. This is going to be a good matchup. These teams, both very good teams from their regions. Furia is technically the favorite to win that game. They would be the technical number 3 seed if we were going by normal seeding standards here. Actually, they're tied with Carmine Corps, so they may not have been. I don't know. But they face off against Carmine Corps. Again, they're still a very dominant team. They haven't been necessarily playing up to that level that we've seen them play at before. But they're finally able to tap into that a little bit this regional, beating SSG. They lost to Furia earlier on in the Swiss, so that's something to look out for. But then they went on to beat Team Secret, and they beat Oxygen to make it through. And Furia, again, they only lost to Falcons. They only lost to Falcons, who is like number 2 in the world right now. Technically speaking, because of the last international LAN event, they are number 2 in the world right now. So losing to them, you can't really blame them. But Furia are looking hot as ever. That's going to be a banger of a matchup. I'm going to say Furia wins it 3-1. No game 5. I'm going to say no overtimes either. 3-1, just straight up. There's going to be one close game, and that's going to be the one that Carmine Corps wins. That's it. Otherwise, Furia is going to look dominant. There's going to be every game that Furia wins is going to be by 2 goals or more. That's what I consider close, is when it's a 1-goal game. Because, yeah, that's just what I consider it to be. But then KC is going to drop down. They're going to play BDS. And BDS is going to win 3-2. This is going to be a game 5. I do believe that there will be a couple overtimes at least, but I do believe that BDS just has the better team comp. They're going to outshine Carmine Corps just a little bit. They're going to start off slow, which is how Carmine Corps is going to be able to get one game here, and then they're going to be able to get one game there. I'm not saying it's going to be a reverse sweep, but I do believe that BDS are going to win that one 3-2. Which means that Furia is going to go on to play Falcons, and that BDS is going to go on and play G2, and KC is going to go on and play SSG. Again, this is if all of my predictions are correct, which obviously they are going to be. But then the next matchup of the day is going to be Oxygen Gentlemates, and I'm going to go ahead and say that Gentlemates win this. I believe these are best of 7 matchups, so I'm going to say Oxygen wins 4-2 for the culture. Like, they're just going to straight up win 4-2 because they are just playing on strictly vibes, and they are crowd favorites right now. And yes, all games are indeed best of 7, so we'll see a lot of matches, and it'll be Oxygen winning it 4-2. And then in the second lower bracket, SSG versus Carmine Corps. That is, again, if Carmine Corps ends up losing both of the games that they have to play, they are then going to play SSG. They're going to be very warmed up, though, and they're going to want revenge against specifically SSG. They beat SSG earlier on in the tournament, but they're going to feel let down from Furia and BDS. They're going to want their revenge. They're going to win the first 2 games, and then they're going to get swept out by SSG the rest of the way. So it's going to be 4-2 for SSG, and that's my prediction for how that is going to play out. But then I think it's going to be First Touch Chalkcast next. Actually, it plays before the bracket play. Okay, so we'll worry about that later then. And then next taking place would be G2. Sorry, I'm fact-checking myself as I do this. Next, it will be Falcons taking on what I will guess to be Furia. And that'll be another rematch. That'll be another really good one. I'm going to say this is going to be a game 7. And Falcons are going to win it. So then Fury's going to drop down. I'm not sure which bracket they're going to drop down into. But they are going to drop down into that lower bracket. And Falcons are going to move on straight to the semifinals. And then next is G2 taking on what I predicted to be BDS. I think G2 is going to win that one 4-1 straight up. I do think it'll be a little bit close. There will be pretty close games, but I do think that G2 will have the finishing touches to be able to close out more games against BDS. So it'll be 4-1 there, and then taking place as a show match, also known as the Great Yap Off. It'll be First Touch taking on Chalkcast. First Touch, of course, Woldiz, T-Bates, and Dazarin, the Golds, taking on Rizzo, CJ, and Johnny Boy, a retired pro who's now a caster and a phenomenal one at that, and Johnny Boy. So obviously that is going to be a trio sweep for First Touch. Yeah, that's right. I said that. Trio sweep for First Touch. But that's all I got for you here at the RLCS Midwest Minutes. We'll see you tomorrow at game day, where there may be a little surprise, but from here on out for the rest of the tournament, which is only Saturday and Sunday, the RLCS Midwest Minutes will be filmed on location. Yes, that's right, folks. On location, after the series, after the matchups, we'll go outside of the arena and film RLCS Midwest Minutes on location. So if you want to gather around and you see me film and just create a little crowd around me and start cheering, who knows if you even watch this before I do that. But then, so yeah, after Saturday, I'll go out, I'll film the RLCS Midwest Minutes, and then after Sunday, I'm gonna go out and then go out and film the RLCS Midwest Minutes for that. But thank you all for stopping on by to the RLCS Midwest Minutes. Sorry about that. That Texas is starting to get to me, y'all. But anyways, thank you for stopping on by to the RLCS Midwest Minutes. I know it's been kind of a long minute, but I had to just talk about my predictions and what happened today. And, you know, as I've said before, that's kind of how it goes over here in the Midwest. Things kind of drag out a little bit longer than they should have. That's why we have a thing called the Midwest Goodbye. But again, thank you all for stopping by and supporting and enjoying the content. Make sure to watch out for deer. And, well, as always, tell your folks I says hi.